Mihaela, would you be able to summarize for us really briefly what the main differences are between housing processes for European students and non-European students?
Yes, of course. That in the Netherlands, there are very few universities that have their own campus buildings, and usually most universities, and Han University of Applied Sciences also works with a partner that does have the buildings and manages them. For this reason, the number of rooms that we have available for students are limited. Also taking into account that in the Netherlands is a bit of a housing shortage at the moment, so that makes it a bit more challenging. We do offer, within the financial guarantee that we talked earlier about, to non-European students guaranteed rooms for 1 year, which means that non-European students will have priority in getting a room from Han University of Applied Sciences. If there are any rooms available after we have placed the students, then we create a waiting list and we will offer the available rooms to European students as well. So it's on the basis of first come, first served. So make sure that once you apply, you already indicate very early in your application process that you want to benefit from a room from the university, and then you will be placed on a waiting list. So I think these are the major points that applicants should take into account. And of course, European Union students should start searching for their own accommodation very early in the process.
As early as possible, really.
Yes.
Rafael, how did you experience the whole journey of looking for accommodation yourself?
It was very stressful, of course, because of the current housing situation in the Netherlands. Sometimes reading all those news and looking at how the situation is can make you stress quite a bit. But I think the explanations and the platform provided by the Han really helped soothe that stress and find a room, of course. With the waiting list and all the options given by the Han in their housing website, where you have all the links to all the websites and the companies that provide housing for students. Once you go through that, you start realizing, okay, it's tough, but it's not impossible. So there's still, as long as you dedicate some time to it and you actively check every week, I would say, it should be fine. That's how I felt.
Yeah, because you had to go through the same procedure as the one that Mihaela outlined for European students, right? Because despite you're from Ecuador, you could also apply through your Italian passport, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So then what did it mean for you? Did you also have to look through for housing through like independent platforms and not necessarily only through the Han?
I had to do both because I have European nationality and I was applying as an Italian. I do qualify as a European student, but physically I was in Ecuador, so I did also had the disadvantages of all non-European students. The fact that I live all the way on the other side of the world and I couldn't. It wasn't that feasible for me to come and visit and find a room on my own like that. I did receive some extra help, but yes, it was more of fending on my own, trying to look for a room myself. But the Han did actually help me quite a bit, and I would say that if it wasn't for the Han, I probably wouldn't have found a place.
Right, because your first accommodation was, correct me if I'm wrong, through SSHN,
yes.
Correct? And Mihaela, what is SSHN? Would you be able to tell us a little about this organization?
Yes, they are a company that offer student accommodations in both Arnhem and in Nijmegen, in our campus cities, and they're also our partner. So together with them, we are able to offer the rooms that we do have available for our international students.
And what did you find, Rafael, in your room offered by SSHN? Was it furnished?
Yeah, it was wonderful actually. It had all the essentials. You know, I had a bed, a very nice one, for that matter, a nice desk, and also a bunch of storage space and all that. So those are the basics already covered. And aside from that, the facilities were also nice. We also had washing machines and dryers, which of course are essential. They were available for use whenever, so there was no time limit on that or anything like that. Also, the kitchen was really nice. Everything it was partially filled with utensils. So the first day that I was there, I'm international, I'm new, I don't really know what I need yet. But I arrived and I could still just go buy some groceries and make myself a meal because I had just the basics, some pots and pans and cutlery. So that was pretty great as well.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and I think it's really good that you're also mentioning this aspect, because I think that some of the people watching from home who are willing to be studying either in Arnhem or Nijmegen might also come to the conclusion that they have to figure out housing on their own. And in some cases, when you're figuring out housing on your own, it might be the case that you don't have all of the different utensils or furniture right away, and that you might have to purchase some of them. So it's just something good to keep in mind. To have in general, because maybe upon your arrival you might want to be staying, for example, 1 or 2 nights elsewhere, just in order to have a little bit of lead time to also get your furniture and get your space ready for yourself living in it, basically. So Mihaela, what are the chances if I apply as a European student and I get put on that waiting list that I still get a room?
Well, it depends every year, of course, of how many students, how big the intake of students is. So I cannot give a percentage. I think what is important is that students that have chosen to make use of the waiting list also in parallel start looking for housing on the private sector as well. So don't place all your eggs in one basket. Put in the time, put in the effort, because if one doesn't pan out, at least you can switch to your plan B. And sometimes maybe students have preferences in how they want to live, where they want to live, and the private sector might be a better fit for them. But in any case, please, that is always the advice, explore both options.
And what is your advice from the Han in case a student is not able to find a room upon arrival?
I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier. We want all our students to be successful. It is an important step, moving countries, being away from the family. And we want that to happen in the best conditions possible, which means having a place to live where you feel comfortable, where you have the comfort and the certainty that you can apply yourself for your studies. So if students do not find any accommodation, especially European Union students, somewhere in June, then we always advise to switch to Plan B, which is maybe postpone your studies with 1 year and try again the next year, or explore other options. I think it's a vital part of studies, having a comfortable place to live in.
Yeah, very important advice for sure. Because Rafael, when did you start looking for accommodation yourself?
I started looking in March, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I actively was looking in March. By March, I started figuring out how this process pans out, and it took a while before you actually understand how you should go about this, even with the help of the Han. As a person that's new to this process, it took some time to figure that out. But I started in March, and it was already very, very stressful starting at that point.
It is late. I think you were one of the lucky ones. So start early. That's all I can say.
And what we also learned from the video is that in case you're able to get, for example, like you did, the SSHN option through the Han, those contracts are only valid for either half a year for February starters or for 1 year for September starters.
Now at this point, I have branched out from student housing, and I think everyone should do something like this eventually, especially to leave space for the new incoming students.
Of course.
So I've branched out to a privately owned, so a private landlord. And although it was a tough and very scary process, because nothing is certain when you do this, it was fine in the end. I have a really nice apartment. It's in a really nice location, right in the center of Arnhem, right next to my favorite park, Snippet.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. And it's nice, actually, nice to have. I did enjoy having roommates, but it's also nice to experience having your own place, being able to, have your own layout, your own kitchen, your own everything, So I like to experience both worlds, roommates and then having my own place.
However, when it comes to privately looking for a place to stay, that in most cases entails, for example, Facebook groups or websites from rental agencies. And we know that an upcoming problem has been the whole scamming behind it. Mihaela, would you like to say perhaps a couple of words about this?
Well, I think use your common sense, right? If your gut feeling says this is not a trustworthy, I don't know, link, don't use it. On the other hand, I do have to say just a bit of some tips. Be persistent. Put yourself out there. Make maybe a short video of yourself for a Facebook group, so people get to know you. I mean, I've seen students that said, I have great cooking skills. I can cook everything, and they got offers from other students. You can come and join us be our roommate, for example. So be persistent, put yourself out there, but be mindful, right? And check your neighborhood. If you saw, a room or a house or an apartment, check the neighborhood. I mean, Google Maps, you can zoom in very far nowadays. So, check the location. Is it close to campus? Do you like how it looks, how the surroundings are? So do your homework and be diligent about it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I found it really funny what you said in terms of all of these applications for housing. Like, even if you see something on a Facebook group, that's exactly the way that you should go for it. Use all of your creative skills to really stand out, because there's a pretty high demand. So I've also seen everything. And whenever I applied for my latest housing opportunity, I was also submitting a lot of different pictures of the types of activities that I do. I submitted a whole text with a lot of interests of mine to just really find a place also where my roommates would have found me as a good match with the whole environment and atmosphere of the house. So in most cases, it really works. But again, it's really up to you to take that initiative to showcase your creative skills. And I see that Rafael is also nodding. Is that also what you had to do in order to find your current place to be?
Yes, absolutely. You definitely have to put yourself out there for sure. I would say one of the pieces of advice that I could give for people that would eventually or already are looking for a place privately like this would be to make a nice image of yourself. It's like consider this as going to a job interview. You wouldn't go to a job interview with a hoodie and some jeans and like that. Well, of course it depends on the job, but that's how I made it work. This is an extremely social scenario. That's all. Their first perception of you as a person is how you're dressed, and then how you behave, and then your social situation. They know that. So you have to really, and if sometimes it's hard to do this sort of thing, but it's definitely worth it. You just go there, like you said, put yourself out there, and just be yourself and show them that they can trust you with their place. Yeah, trust you to live there.
Indeed, I really very much like the comparison that you made with finding a job and going to a job interview. That's actually quite comparable for sure.
When you move to the Netherlands, I would recommend you bring a jacket. That's the number one thing, and
number
that's
one
the
thing.
number one thing I don't regret investing or just fitting it somehow in my luggage to bring here, because I have had one huge ski jacket this whole time since I arrived to the Netherlands, and it's been amazing. Because, of course, coming from Ecuador, where the climate is pretty stagnant the entire year, to a place where you have seasons, especially winter, and it gets so cold and rainy. Of course, has to be very good against water, so waterproof. Coming to a place like
windproof,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
All of the different weather phenomena that are out there, it has to be proven for
so
those.
coming here with something like that to protect you is a must for sure. And aside from that, something that I always like to recommend is, one of the biggest struggles that people have when they move away from home is actually missing home, right? So what I did is I have a couple of little things, nothing too big, that I brought from home that have a lot of meaning for me, and you don't really have to put them anywhere special or anything like that. I would just put them on my desk, just as decorative objects. And then every time I would be working or I would just glance at those things on my desk, I would get a warm feeling of being at home and stuff like that. So that's I think that's a very important aspect for mental health when you move away from home, to just have something to help you cope with the fact that you're so far away, especially as an international student.